Today's podcast is brought to you by Dell Expert Network. Cyber attacks can destroy businesses, and when data is the driver behind the success of your business, there's nothing more important or worth protecting. Protecting the organization starts with protecting the data, and no one knows this better than Dell Technologies. Join the Dell Expert Network now at www.dell.com/expert network to learn more about how Dell Technologies is partnering with MSPs to offer their broad array of security solutions.
You're entering the MSP Zone, a podcast for the managed services community, covering news, analysis, and interviews from around the globe. Elevate your MSP game by staying in the MSP Zone. And now, your host, Charles Weaver.
I told you guys about a conversation that I had maybe a couple weeks ago now with a insurance professional executive, you could call him, a person who specializes in, among other things, cyber insurance, and certainly understands MSPs decently, well enough, better than most insurance executives, but has a very good understanding of the insurance industry and how the insurance industry views MSPs. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about. I know we've talked about that before, but I want to talk about it today in the context of assigning blame. You know, that's kind of a loaded term. Because the conversation with that insurance executive really brought to the surface for me how kind of far apart maybe we are, insurance profession and managed services profession, and I was wondering, as I typically do, well, is this far distance between us, or does it just seem that way because we don't understand some very common things that the other side does not, if that makes sense. So I'm going to try to unpack it because I've been doing a lot of contemplation about this issue, and I don't think that there's necessarily an easy answer. There are some easy answers to some questions, but I'm going to try to unpack in an objective fashion as possible the MSP viewpoint and the insurance, the cyber insurance specifically, viewpoint of cyber insurance coverage, and try to present the issues as objectively as I can in order to get to maybe a breakthrough point of where we need to be, and hopefully that allows the right environment to do that. So. Here goes nothing. Again, this was a friendly conversation with a person that I have just met this year, but I've had several conversations with them, and they're I would trust their opinion. They're not I've had a lot of conversations with really questionable insurance people. They're not even insurance people. They're people who are trying to profit very quickly from the insurance scare that's happening out there. This is not that person. So this person is a legitimate, cyber insurance executive. He understands the issues, and this was the conversation that we had. His view, based off of his conversations with cyber insurance carriers, of the state of cyber insurance coverage for managed service providers is as follows. The MSP sector, the MSP profession, presents a unique area of risk for cyber carriers. When I say carrier, I mean an underwriter carrier. They can be separate entities sometimes, but what I'm saying is the entity or the group that is collectively responsible for the underwriting, the approval, and the issuance of a cyber policy. All right, that's what I mean. And their view is that the MSP profession presents a unique opportunity for the cyber criminal to attack, because if the MSP is breached, the MSP has customers that it manages, and as such, the MSP is going to be a target opportunity for the bad guy that is an order of magnitude larger than what they would normally get if they were just randomly, injecting, malware code out there into the ether, waiting for someone to click on it, like in the form of an email or other type of deployment mechanism. And the MSP is a greater target opportunity, basically. And I could see the argument. I can see it. Now, while I conceded that, yes, an MSP could conceivably have a larger, what's the right term? Not payload, but a larger impact on the customer that they manage downstream, and in consequence to the carrier who issues the insurance, because the MSP gets hit, and then in theory, all these downstream customers get hit by ransomware, right? That's what we're talking about. Now, in reality, is that what happens to the vast majority of MSPs? No, it is not. But I'm going to get to that, right? But before we get to that, let's just acknowledge that that's a very real threat to the insurance industry, and they have a real bad last several years demonstrating that, these things that call themselves MSPs, more on that shortly, tend to have high clusters of claims, both from the MSP itself and from the MSP customers who say, hey, look, I got hit. I got ransomware, and I think it came from the MSP. That's the view of the insurance industry. And so they look at MSPs and they say, wow, this is really risky. I don't know if we want to do this. Some of them, some industry carriers just backed out of the MSP sector altogether. Others are just very, very cautious. So let's assume that that's all right. That's their viewpoint, right or wrong. That's their viewpoint. Here's the MSP view of insurance. There are, well, first of all, and the insurance executive, when posed this question, agreed with me, which is, well, if MSPs represent risk, then surely all we need to do is remove the MSP entirely from the equation, and the end user customer will become safer, right? And the executive said, no, that's not an outcome we want at all. And that was telling to me. That was because I wanted to really see, and I think this person is knowledgeable enough about managed services. I can't say the same about his colleagues downstream in the insurance industry. In fact, I would wager that a lot of them don't understand these issues, maybe as well. Maybe they do, but I don't think that this is a widespread opinion that if you remove the MSP, that's going to be a really bad thing. Like, this gentleman got it. He understood it. I'm hoping that a vast majority of insurance professionals understand that as well, because in my opinion, I've been looking at this for a long time. I think that would be disastrous. Like, that would be catastrophic to every industry where managed service providers currently reside. If you were to remove the MSPs because of this perceived risk of the MSP, you've got disaster. You've got disaster because you've got nobody tending the gates. Nobody's walking the wall. Nobody's arming themselves against these cyber attacks that are coming relentlessly from all over at all hours of the day and night, never stopping. For most of these organizations, save for but a very, very small select few who have resources enough to pull this off themselves, and even they tend to outsource to managed services. It would be an undesirable outcome. Let's just leave it like that. Okay. Going further. So nobody wants the MSPs to go away, or at least this person kind of conceded and said, no, we don't want MSPs to go away. But these people over here, these insurance people, they view the MSPs as risky. Well, how can an MSP be both risky and indispensable to cybersecurity for customers? Because that seemed to me like a brain exploding event. Like, I was trying to grapple with that for a long time after that conversation. How could both of those things be true? Like, that really bothered me. One of them had to be wrong. If you get what I'm saying? If the insurance industry view is right, that the MSP presents a higher risk target profile for hackers, then surely getting rid of that would be a good thing. Because the inference is that the customers are at greater risk because of the MSP. Well, then I flipped the argument and I said, well, if you just remove the MSP from the equation, then the customer risk should go down. Well, this executive said clearly, no, absolutely not. We acknowledge that in that scenario, the customer risk goes sky high, through the roof. So I started to really struggle with that. What can these things both coexist? And I realized they do coexist, but is one side wrong about something? Is one side, and then I really asked the question, is it our side? Is it me? Do I get it wrong? Am I getting something crucially wrong here that would allow this kind of duality of risk and blame occur? Well, I dug further, I stuck with it, and I think I've come up with a rational explanation. Where does the risk really occur between MSP and customer? When I say customer, I mean managed services customer. When I say MSP, I do mean MSP, proactive managed IT service provider. I would say the following. I would say that the good best practices practicing MSP represents a much lower threat to themselves and to their installed managed services customer base than a reactive company. And that was my first consensus. My first conclusion and takeaway was both of these dual arguments, these opposing arguments between insurance industry and MSP could be true simultaneously if you acknowledge one thing, that there are some entities calling themselves MSPs who are just not managed service providers. Period. That would explain a lot. It would explain a lot. It would explain everything. Well, almost everything. It would explain a lot between the claims data that some of these carriers are presenting, saying, "Well, we're getting beaten up by all these MSP claims. We're shelling out money, and it's all coming from these folks called MSPs." How could we be wrong about that? You could be wrong about it if the MSPs aren't really MSPs. And it doesn't mean that they don't have risk. It doesn't mean that they don't have access to an RMM. I'm not saying that at all. In fact, I'd say that there's a lot of non-MSPs who have access to remote management technology. And that's a whole nother conversation. And I don't want to open up that can of worms, but I feel like at some point we're going to have to. But let's acknowledge that, right? Let's just acknowledge and bear with me in this, that there are self-proclaimed MSPs who aren't MSPs, period. Let's just leave that. Next. And I think that that's a big explanation for a lot of this risk and the risk confusion and the blame game. But there's another element which I also think is at play here, which is there are real, legitimate, proactive MSPs who have customers who are refusing and have refused and continue to refuse to adopt cyber best practices, and therefore, despite the best efforts of the MSP, are a high-profile target to hackers. Now, I think the fake MSP, if you want to call it, and the below standard, unsafe managed services customer, unsafe not because of the MSP, unsafe because of their own decisions not to update practices, technology, all that stuff. Both of those things combined, I think, represent the largest kind of single set of arguments that account for why the insurance industry views MSPs the way they do, and why we on the MSP side view, kind of push back and say, no, that's not really true. We're safe. You want us. You don't want to get rid of us. You don't want to cancel our insurance. Right? So both of those things, the bad MSP, the fake MSP, and the bad client. And I should even say the bad MSP. They're not MSPs. They're break fix. And they're not bad break fix. They're good break fix. That's the problem. They're doing what they're supposed to do in break fix. They're reacting to stuff. They're reacting to the break-in after the break-in happens, and they're doing exactly what they pretend to do. The problem is nobody wants that anymore. That business model's dead. Moving forward, there's no role other than a forensic, like a crime scene investigator, which, there are reasons to have that, but that's not what these break-fix companies are doing. They're just coming in and sweeping up the broken glass and the blood stains and all that stuff. The MSP is sitting there trying to prevent the crime from occurring in the first place. So how do we move forward, folks? How do we move past this? Well, so what I told the insurance executive was, look, if we acknowledge that you don't want to get MSPs out of the way, if we acknowledge that MSPs are indispensable to your fight, MSPs help lower your risk as insurance providers to lower risk for customers, then what we need to solve is the fake / bad MSP or the good break fix company. We need to fix that. And we also need to fix the bad client. And here's where I think we can actually achieve some good maybe in 2023. The insurance industry can't solve the bad MSP. They're not equipped to do this. Sorry, I'll throw that out there. They don't understand that. That's going to be something that we in our industry have to sort out. And I've been a vocal advocate against licensure. I'm not saying that. I like our industry the way it is. I think that this is a free market correction that needs to take place, and largely done through education, I might add. But I think that the MSP non-MSP issue is we're going to start to solve this, And if the RMM community doesn't want to get involved, because I understand why they wouldn't, because they want to sell more licenses, I get it. And I actually think, as I've always thought, that we need more MSPs. And so I'm not going to stand in the way of the RMMs getting the tools out there. What I'm going to stand in the way of, and I'm not going to stand in the way of it, but I'm going to shout from the rooftops as much as I can that beware of the difference between an MSP and a non-MSP. And just because that company says that they're an MSP because they have an RMM license, guess what? That's not what makes an MSP. You know, just because I carry a pen and paper around doesn't mean I'm a poet. Doesn't mean I'm an author. Just means I've got these implements that a lot of authors and writers carry. Right? You get what I'm saying? I carry a scalpel. Does it make me a surgeon? Nope. Could make me Jack the Ripper. Could make me something else bad. But it doesn't make me a surgeon, right? Possessing an RMM doesn't make you an MSP. Sorry to break it to you, folks. Sorry, but that's reality. So next year, we're going to really start to call out and encourage. We're gonna do this through encouragement, because if there are non-MSPs out there who are in possession of MSP tools and they want to become members of our community, we need the help. We need you in the game, in the fight. But we need you to participate at a level that is consistent with what our best practices are. And that is an expectation you cannot avoid. I'm sorry to tell you that, but you're going to have to change some things. Most of those things, take it from me. If you trust me, take it from me. Most of those changes are going to be good. They're going to make you money. They're going to make you higher margin. They're going to make you more scalable, more efficient, more secure. They're going to be good. I'm not saying they're going to be easy, because some of them are not easy changes to make, but they're changes that will make a huge benefit in your company and in your customers' experience too. But that's one side of it, is correcting the bad MSP or creating more good MSPs is a more positive way to look at it. The other side is the bad client, and I actually think that that's where the insurance industry is now becoming very helpful, and I think that the insurance industry needs to continue this, which is the insurance industry by threatening the cancellation or the termination of a cyber policy for a customer is a good enough threat that, armed with a good, positive, best practices following MSP, could do a world of good in correcting a lot of bad behavior that we've been witnessing for many, many years. Right? So on the one hand, you let the MSP profession sort itself out, and we'll figure out, because we've already figured it out. Right? It's not like we have to figure it out. We've already solved this equation a long, long time ago. We solved it 18 years ago. We have a standard. It's called MSP Verify, folks. Go read about it. It's not SOC 2. It's not ISO. It's not CMMC. None of those are MSP frameworks. We solved it 18 years ago. A lot of smart people, and it's been through a lot of review and revision. Trust me. Go take a look at it. Even if you're not MSP verified yourself, you should be following all of these elements that are listed publicly in that standard. Go do it. Nothing's stopping you from doing that today. Go start today. We can sort out the MSP behavior issue. The insurance industry, I think, is going to really help us sort out the bad customer behavior issue. And I think that that's the path forward. I think that's the easiest path forward. We know MSPs aren't going to go away. It's not going to happen. And we need cyber coverage. Or let's put it this way. Things are going to be a lot easier with cyber coverage. If we don't get cyber coverage, we've got a plan B. I'll float that out there for you right now. We can move forward without cyber insurance coverage, but it would be a lot easier if we could just gain some understanding from the cyber insurance profession and acknowledge that we at least understand the MSP, non-MSP equation. We get it. We've been dealing with this for many, many years. We can help you. If you need help with this, call us. Let us know, and we will help you. We'll give you the guidance that we have, and we'll do our best to help you sort through whatever struggles you're dealing with. But that's the best way, is a combined approach where we acknowledge the role of the legitimate MSP. We acknowledge the work that they do. We acknowledge that they have to behave in a way that is commensurate with their profession. And we also acknowledge that the customer needs to behave in a way that is commensurate with cyber best practices. All right? And doing both of those things can bring about a world of rapid, good change. Like, it could start happening immediately. And that's the takeaway that I eventually got to after this conversation. After some struggles and some tortuous thoughts that, maybe I wasn't getting something. I think I've pieced it together. It makes sense now. It's rational. It's a realistic worldview of the way things are, and I think that if we can kind of come to the table collectively, the MSP and the insurance sector, that we will solve a lot of problems, a lot of dangerous problems out there, I might add, and solve this and move forward, because the amount of customers who are not practicing good cyber hygiene today are numerous. And for that matter, the number of fake MSPs out there, there's a lot of break-fix companies still operating. We need you to become MSPs. We need you to become proactive. Ditch the reactive. In 2023, that's going to be our mantra. Ditch the reactive. Become proactive. Become an MSP, a real MSP. And life will become a lot better and a lot easier for you. And guess what? Your customers, they'll thank you for it.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a like. Make sure you are subscribed to the podcast so you will get notified when future episodes are released. We will see you next time in the MSP Zone.